I want you to stop for a second and think about, the last thing you threw away. That wasn't just trash, was it? It was lost value, lost money, really. But did you know that just by strategically designing out that waste, there's a global market opportunity? We're talking $4.5 trillion by 2030. That's the circular economy shift. It is, well, possibly the biggest wealth creation event happening right now.
Welcome to the deep dive. And today, we're going beyond the usual sustainability talk. We're digging into the sources you sent to really map this out. We're talking strategies, business models like PaaS, the tech involved, and the compliance side, the stuff that's not optional anymore. Basically, how companies are getting a piece of that $4.5 trillion pie.
Right. Our mission today, looking at all this research, is to really connect the dots between four big pillars. The circular economy, climate tech investment, which is just huge impact entrepreneurship, and this new era of mandatory ESG compliance.
Exactly. The fundamental truth here, the thing to really grasp, is that the old way, take, make, dispose it, on its way out. Businesses are actively moving towards profitable, regenerative models. Sustainability isn't, just a cost anymore. It's becoming the core business imperative for long-term profit.
Okay, let's make this real. There's a great story in the sources that nails this. Think about hotels and mattresses, high turnover item, right? Traditionally, a hotel buys a mattress, uses it maybe 7, 10 years. Then it's this huge expensive headache to get rid of, landfill bound.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where this Austrian startup, MATR, they just flipped the whole thing. They came up with mattress as a service. They don't sell the mattress. They provide it like a subscription. They handle everything, maintenance, end of life, recycling.
Hang on, though. Isn't that basically just leasing?
Yeah.
How is that fundamental different when you scale it?
Good question. That's a really critical distinction. Leasing, often, the user might buy the product at the end. But with PaaS product as a service, the key is the manufacturer keeps ownership of the actual asset, mattress in this case. And that changes their whole financial incentive structure. Suddenly they want it to last longer. They want it easy to fix, easy to take apart. Why? Because those materials, that residual value, it stays on their books, not in some landfill. That means components get reused, CO2 footprint drops drastically. That control over the asset's whole life. That's the engine driving the circular economy.
Okay, got it. So that shift, moving from selling the thing that gets thrown away to selling a long-term service tied to an asset you keep owning, that's really the core of this first big insight, isn't it? The circular revolution.
Precisely. The circular economy isn't just about less waste. It's about actively regenerating systems. Our sources laid out this hierarchy, the 10R strategies, but for you, the listener, right now, the focus should really be on the short loops, the strategies that stop waste before it even happens.
Right, the prevention side. So we're talking R0, R1, R2. Can you walk us through those first key steps?
Absolutely. R0 is basically refuse, just banning stuff that's clearly harmful, like all the single-use plastics we see targeted globally. R1 is rethink. That means shifting to shared models, like, car sharing instead of everyone owning a car. And R2 is reduce, just being more efficient all along the supply chain. These are the immediate wins, the low-hanging fruit for profit.
And it's pretty amazing how fast startups are jumping on these. You mentioned Numi.Circular in Germany, building software to automate product take-back and resale. That's like finding a whole new revenue stream for brands.
Exactly. Or look at the really regenerative stuff like Zimbabwe's in Zimbabwe. They're not just recycling. They're taking agricultural waste, biomass, and turning it into biochar. Now, biochar, it helps regenerate soil. It traps carbon. You can even use it in construction. So you're turning waste into multiple valuable products in different sectors. That's circularity in action.
And that product as a service, PaaS model we talked about with the mattresses, it's popping up everywhere. I love the decathlon example from the sources. The kids' bike subscription in Belgium makes so much sense.
It really does.
Parents rent the bike, kids outgrow it, they return it, Decathlon fixes it up, rents it out again, solves a real problem for parents constantly buying bigger gear, and keeps the bikes out of the scrap heap.
And it scales up to huge infrastructure projects, too. Philips Lighting is the classic case, right? Providing light as a service to massive places like Schiphol Airport. Philips guarantees the light levels. They own the fixtures. They do all the maintenance, replace bulbs when they decide it's optimal, not the airport. PaaS forces the manufacturer to think long-term to maximize that product's value over its entire life because, well, they still own it. It stays out of the landfill.
It's fascinating to see big players like the Indian Railways embedding this. The sources mention them melting down old tracks to make new ones. That avoids so much raw material extraction on a massive scale.
Yeah, and similarly, Tata Motors Pro-Life, they're reconditioning something like 23,000 engines worth of parts every year. That kind of proactive rebuilding is key for infrastructure longevity. But of course, all that industrial recycling, it needs clean energy to power it, doesn't it?
Exactly. Which brings us perfectly to our second big insight, the climate tech tipping point. And the numbers here are, honestly, they're pretty staggering. Clean energy tech spending, expected to hit $670 billion in 2025. Get this, for the first time ever, that's projected to match global spending on upstream oil and gas. This isn't some niche alternative anymore. This is the market now.
The investment flow totally backs that up. Just in the U.S., $7.6 billion in VC money poured into clean energy in 2024. And crucially, 3 out of every 4 of those deals were early-stage seed or Series A. Investors are scrambling to find the next big thing.
And the tech itself is evolving fast. It's not just solar panels and basic lithium-ion batteries anymore. The sources really highlighted the need for long-duration energy storage.
Yes, absolutely. If your grid depends heavily on wind and solar, you have that intermittency problem, right? The sun doesn't always shine, wind doesn't always blow. So you need tech things like vanadium redox flow batteries, iron air batteries that can store huge amounts of energy, not just for hours, but for days to keep the grid stable. Demand for that is just soaring.
What really jumped out at me here, though, was the role of AI. Because that instability, that's the biggest risk, isn't it? The sources said that forecasting errors, trying to predict weather and demand without smart tools, can be off by as much as 700%. That's wild.
AI is becoming absolutely essential for managing that risk. It's not just looking at simple weather forecasts. It's pulling in satellite data, real-time energy use, grid load, all sorts of things, constantly adjusting predictions. That capability is what makes the transition feasible, manageable. Look at Chile. They're planning to base their entire 2025 grid planning on Google's Tapestry AI. That shows you the confidence level. AI takes that huge 700% risk and tames it.
And India isn't just playing catch-up here. It's a major leader, ranked 4th globally in renewable capacity. They've had this incredible solar surge capacity up by something like 4,000% by mid-2025, just exponential growth.
It really is, and the scale is immense. You've got huge government programs like the PM Surya Ghar Yojana aiming for 30 gigawatts of residential solar, plus massive projects like the Omkareshwar floating solar park, 600 megawatts, one of the biggest in Asia. These aren't small tests. These are nation-building scale projects.
Okay, so we've got the $4.5 trillion circular opportunity driven by models like PaaS. We've got the $670 billion tech engine in climate tech. But making these huge shifts happen takes more than just good intentions or market forces. Which brings us to big insight number 3, the compliance and impact imperative.
Right. This is where impact entrepreneurship comes in. Ventures that aren't just chasing profit, but are focused on the triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. And impact investing is adding serious fuel here. In India, ESG funds saw a 5-fold jump in just 4 years, hitting $1.5 billion by 2022. The money is following measurable positive impact.
But okay, doing good is one thing. How do you actually prove it? The sources emphasize measurement is key. You really need to know about 2 main frameworks. First, social return on investment, or SROI.
SROI is critical because it puts a dollar value on things that aren't typically financial. It's a process, about 6 steps, that measures social, environmental, economic benefits and translates them into actual monetary terms. So you can prove, say, that every rupee you invested in that waste program actually generated 5 rupees worth of community health savings or environmental protection. It's how you make the case to finance departments and shareholders.
Okay, monetizing the good. And the other one, B Corp certification. That seems like a really high bar.
It is. It's seen as the gold standard globally for verified social and environmental performance. And it's not just, a nice certificate. It involves a legal commitment. The company has to be accountable to all stakeholders, workers, community, environment, not just the shareholders.
And here's that aha moment from the research. Ecotier, India's first B Corp. Their initial score was 140. Just for context, that's higher than famous global impact brands like Ben & Jerry's, even Patagonia. That's a serious world-class commitment.
Huge achievement. But here's the kicker, the big shift. Regulation is making this stuff mandatory. It's moving from voluntary nice-to-have to must-do, especially in India with SEBI's BRSR framework.
Right, the business responsibility and sustainability reporting framework. That's the key driver now.
It really is. It mandates the top 1,000 listed companies report on specific ESG parameters: environmental, social, governance. This isn't like standard financial reporting.
How so? Does it mean audited numbers for carbon emissions, water use, or is it still more like self-assessment?
It demands much greater accountability and transparency. The governance standards, for example, are quite specific, looking at board diversity, shareholder rights, anti-corruption policies. The market is essentially being forced to be transparent across all three E, S, and G. And that mandatory reporting, that's what embeds this impact focus into core strategy, moving it beyond just PR.
Okay, let's push into the deeper value section. Where the sustainability transition unlocks entirely new resources, we definitely need to talk about green hydrogen.
Oh, yeah. The scale of India's ambition here is just massive. The National Green Hydrogen Mission. We're talking a budget of around 19,744 crore. The goal is 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen production annually by 2030, and potentially 600,000 green jobs along with it. This is a huge energy system transformation.
And it's not just plans on paper. They're already building plants. Adani New Industries commissioned India's first off-grid 5 MW pilot plant back in June 2025 in Kutch. Shows real intent, real projects hitting the ground.
Definitely. And underpinning all of this, tracking the hydrogen, tracing products returned under PaaS, proving emissions reductions, you need absolute trust and traceability. That's where tech like blockchain is becoming really critical.
How does blockchain distributed ledger tech actually help with sustainability tracking?
Well, it gives you those multi-directional flows of information and, crucially, an immutable ledger. Nobody can tamper with the data once it's recorded. That's vital for compliance, especially for tracking GHG emissions across really complex global supply chains. When BRSR asks you to prove your carbon footprint, you can't just rely on spreadsheets and hoping everyone tells the truth anymore.
Which explains why big players like Infosys are rolling out things like their Sustainability Provenance solution, using DLT for that complete auditable trail. It closes the trust gap, provides the hard data regulators and investors now demand.
Okay, before we wrap, we have to share that hidden bonus, that really specific example showing sustainability paying off financially, even for local government. It proves the cash flow is real.
Yeah, this was cool. The city of Indore Smart City. They became the first urban local body in South Asia to actually tap into carbon finance. Just in phase 2, they generated 8.34 crore, that's real revenue, from things like managing wet waste and biomethanation projects, turning garbage into energy and carbon credits, and getting paid for it.
So let's try and pull this all together for you. The economic prize is real, that $4.5 trillion. It's being unlocked by business model shifts like PaaS in the circular economy. It's powered by huge AI-enhanced investment in climate tech. And critically, it's becoming non-negotiable through compliance frameworks like BRSR and measurement tools like SROI.
And the endpoint here, the ultimate goal,
Yeah.
it isn't just about doing less harm or hitting net zero. It's actually about healing the planet and doing it profitably. Think about regenerative agriculture, like that zero-budget natural farming in Andhra Pradesh the sources mentioned, sequestering around 2.5 tons of CO2 per hectare every year. The future is truly regenerative, aiming to leave the world better off.
That's arguably the best ROI you can get today. Thanks for diving deep into all this critical information with us.
Absolutely. Now, next time. We're jumping into a brewing crisis, the coming mountain of used EV batteries. It's a huge materials challenge. We'll explore tech like the patented hydro-to-cathode process, recovering 98% of critical materials from spent batteries. And we'll look at the race between companies like Redwood Materials and Li-Cycle to dominate this vital new recycling space. Seriously, the future of transport could hinge on what we do with these batteries after the car is done. Don't miss it.
And remember, every insight gets deeper on the second listen, so make sure you save this deep dive in your library.